Imagine this. One day the lights still come on, the grocery stores still have food, the roads are still paved, the internet still works, and almost nobody notices that day stops to ask who actually keeps all of that running. Then one day the lights flicker, the shelves go half empty, the bills pile up, and suddenly every blue check influencer, every legacy media talking head, every billionaire daytime TV host is screaming the same frantic question: where did all the men go? That is not hyperbole. That is not rage bait. That is literally what is happening right now in real time. And if you stay with me to the very end of this video, I'm going to show you the one graph that proves society has exactly 18 to 24 months left before the wheels come off completely unless something drastic changes. And no, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about the quietest, most powerful revolution in human history that almost nobody is covering. And if you want more uncensored, no filter, angry guy breakdowns like this, smash the like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who's still asleep, and hit subscribe so you never miss when I drop the next one. Also, if you're serious about protecting everything you've worked for and actually growing real wealth in this collapsing economy, go click the link in the description and join Angry's Crypto Academy today. I teach regular guys how to buy, sell, trade, and most importantly, safeguard their assets when the traditional system is actively working against them. Thousands of men are already in there stacking quietly. The door is open, but it will not stay open forever. Link below. Go check it out right now. And if these videos are hitting home and you want to keep the Red Bulls flowing so I can keep making them without selling my soul to sponsors, there's a Buy Me a Red Bull link in the description too. Everykin keeps the rage alive. I appreciate every single one of you that throws one in the cart. Now let's get into it. A few weeks ago, Oprah Winfrey and Scott Galloway sat down with a room full of men for what was supposed to be some kind of let's heal the divide conversation. Within 10 minutes, Oprah looks around and says, and I quote, "Men are in crisis. Young men especially are struggling. We need men to come back." Scott Galloway nods along and adds that boys are falling behind in school, men are dropping out of the workforce, and society is lost without male participation. The entire clip is framed like a national emergency. They speak about men the same way people speak about an endangered species that needs to be lured back into the habitat before the ecosystem is dying without them. And on the surface, that sounds compassionate, almost noble. Except when you zoom out and look at the last 50 years of messaging directed at men, the entire thing collapses into the most tone deaf gaslighting campaign ever recorded. Because, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non binary squirrels, and everyone in between, let me make this perfectly clear. There is no male crisis. There is only a male response. Men are not lost. Men are not broken. Men are not failing. Men are obeying. For 5 straight decades, men were told in every possible way to leave. Leave the classroom because it was redesigned for girls. Leave the university because it was openly hostile to male energy. Leave the workplace because DEI quotas would choose less qualified candidates for the sake of optics. Leave dating because one wrong text message could end your career. Leave marriage because the courts will financially destroy you if she changes her mind. Leave fatherhood because the culture decided children do not actually need fathers anymore. Leave public spaces because sitting with your knees apart is violence. Leave conversation because having an opinion while male is automatically toxic. Leave, 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 leave. And men, being the reasonable, agreeable, mission oriented creatures that we are, finally said, okay, we left. We walked away. We went home. We went quiet. We went minimalist. We went monk. We went ghost. And now that the tax base is evaporating, the military cannot recruit, the trades are empty, the birth rate is in free fall, and the national debt cannot be serviced without 80% of the income tax revenue that only men generate. Suddenly everybody is panicking and begging us to come back to society. I'm sorry, come back to what exactly? Come back to being told we are the problem while simultaneously being told we are the only solution. Come back to working 60-hour weeks to subsidize lifestyles and government programs that openly hate us. Come back to marriage where 80% of divorces are initiated by women and 90% of the financial pain is carried by men. Come back to a culture that celebrates our replacement while demanding we keep paying for everything. No, that deal is dead. That contract was shredded a long time ago, and the people who shredded it are now standing in the wreckage, screaming for the men they kicked out to come fix it. Here are the cold numbers nobody wants to say out loud. In the United States right now, working age men have been leaving the labor force at a rate never seen in recorded history. 50 million men, 50 million, have either completely dropped out or dramatically scaled back their hours. That is not laziness. That is not video games. That is not pornography. That is a calculated risk reward decision. Men looked at the return on investment for traditional life paths and said hard pass. Because here's the part nobody talks about. Over the course of his lifetime, the average man pays far more into the system than he ever takes out. He is a net contributor. The average woman, over the course of her lifetime, takes far more out of the system than she ever puts in. She is a net recipient. That is not judgment, that is mathematics. Taxes, social programs, healthcare spending, education spending, welfare spending, all of it skews heavily toward female consumption and male production. Married men with children pay the highest taxes of any demographic because they work the longest hours trying to provide for wives and kids who have been told they do not actually need them. And what happened when men started opting out of marriage and fatherhood? The entire surplus dried up overnight. The government is now running $1 trillion deficits every single year because the primary revenue engine, motivated family men, stopped showing up. The money printer in Washington cannot keep up. Inflation is eating everyone alive. And the same voices that told men, we don't need you, are now on television wringing their hands saying, where did all the good men go? They went exactly where you told them to go. Nowhere. You told them to disappear and they became world champions at it. Look at what men are doing instead of traditional grinding. They are moving to cheap rural land and building off grid cabins. They are day trading crypto from laptops in Thailand, making more money in a week than they used to make in a year. They are starting one person online businesses that generate six figures with 10 hours a week. They are becoming digital nomads, seasonal workers, seasonal hunters, seasonal fishermen. Anything allows them to work the absolute minimum required, survive, and then spend the rest of their time lifting, reading, gaming, traveling, or just sitting in peace. I have said this before, and I will say it again. The average man can be happy living in a 400 square foot studio with a mini fridge, a gaming PC, and a gym membership. The average woman cannot be happy unless the square footage has multiple zeros and the ring has multiple carats. That is not hate, that is observed reality. Men's why, when women were recently polled, and millions of them said they would rather meet a bear in the woods than a random man. The entire internet full of men shrugged and said, cool, let the bear pay the rent then. Because for the first time in modern history, men are refusing to play the hero. We are refusing to ride in on the white horse and save the village that burned our house down. And the village is now catching fire. And look at the recruitment numbers for the military. Branch after branch is missing targets by double digits. Why? Because young men are asking the obvious question. Why would I risk my life for a country teaches little boys they are defective girls from kindergarten onward? Why would I fight for a society calls me toxic until it needs someone carry the heavy stuff or run into the burning building? That the answer is I wouldn't. And millions of men have quietly come to the same conclusion. There is an old saying, no man works harder than a man working for his wife and children. That motivation built the modern world. Skyscrapers, highways, electricity grids, space programs, all of it was built by men who thought they were providing for posterity. Remove the wife, remove the children, remove the respect, and you remove the motivation. What's left is a man who will work exactly hard enough, cover his own needs, and not 1 ounce more. That is not a bug. That is the feature they forgot to account for. They thought men were slaves, would keep working out of duty or shame. They were wrong. Men are voluntary participants, always have been. You want our maximum effort? Give us maximum incentive. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Family, legacy, respect, protection under the law, a fair shot at building something last. Take those things away and replace them with contempt and legal liability, and we will peace out faster than you can say mansplaining. And now the same women who spent years saying, I don't need no man, are on TikTok crying about inflation and wondering why rent is so high. The same academics who said fatherhood was patriarchal oppression are now publishing studies about the crisis of father absence. The same politicians who built an entire system around replacing husbands with government checks are now screaming about the collapsing birth rate and shrinking tax base. You broke the deal. You got exactly what you demanded. You wanted independence? Congratulations. You are independent now. You wanted to run the world without men? Here you go. You wanted a society where men are simultaneously told they are unnecessary and also told they have to pay for everything. Enjoy the cognitive dissonance because men are done subsidizing a system actively works against our interests. We are done being the disposable utility only valued in crisis. We are done being blamed for everything while being erased from everything. We are keeping our time, our money, our energy, our peace, and our future. And the craziest part, we have never been happier. Depression rates among young men are actually dropping for the first time in decades. Suicide rates are flattening. Men are lifting heavier, eating cleaner, stacking money, traveling the world, and sleeping like babies. Because peace is underrated until you have it. Once a man tastes real peace, he will never go back to the chaos for anything less than an extraordinary offer. And ladies, the offer on the table right now is worse than the one you rejected. So, no, we are not coming back to save you from the consequences of your own ideology. We are not coming back to rebuild what you tore down. We are not coming back to pay for a party we weren't invited to. You wanted the bear? Go live with the bear. You wanted the state to be your husband? Enjoy the honeymoon because the state is about to default on the marriage. And when the lights finally go out for good, the last thing you will hear is millions of men sitting in the dark, sipping something cold, smiling, and saying the same four words. We tried to warn you. Let me paint you a picture that nobody in the mainstream wants you to see. Imagine a small town in the Midwest, the kind of place that still has a main street with a diner, a hardware store, and a VFW hall. 10 years ago, that town had 3 factories running 3 shifts, a fully staffed fire department, a little league program bursting at the seams, and church pews that were packed every Sunday. The men in that town woke up at 4:30 in the morning, kissed their wives, kissed their kids, punched the clock, paid the mortgage, coached the teams, fixed the trucks, and kept the lights on for everybody. They didn't do it for applause. They did it because that was the deal. You work, you protect, you provide, and in exchange, you get respect, a family, a legacy, and a country that has your back. Fast forward to today. 2 of those factories are shuttered. The third is running on skeleton crews because nobody wants the overtime anymore. The fire department is begging for volunteers and having to let calls stack because half the guys who used to run into burning buildings now refuse to risk their lives for a town that teaches their sons they are the problem. Little League is down to 2 teams because there aren't enough dads left who will give up their Saturdays. The church is half empty on Sunday because the men finally asked themselves why they should sit there and be lectured about their privilege by a pastor who makes 6 figures while they struggle to pay the electric bill. And the women in that town, they're on social media every single day posting about how there are no good men left, how all the men are broke, lazy, or live in their mom's basement. They post TikToks crying about the price of eggs while wearing $500 yoga sets. They demand a man who is 6'2", makes six figures, has six-pack abs, and is willing to pay for everything while never asking for anything in return, including respect. And when the few remaining men who still fit that description look at the fine print, marriage laws that favor women in 90% of cases, child support calculations that assume guilt before innocence, a culture that will cancel you for looking at someone the wrong way, they quietly close the dating apps and go back to fishing. That town is not an exception. That town is every town in America right now. That town is the entire Western world in miniature. The factories are the economy. The fire department is national defense. The Little League field is the future birth rate. The church is the culture itself. And the men walking away from all of it are not broken, they are awake. You see, men never needed much. Give a man a mission, a woman who respects him, a couple of kids who look up to him, and a society that doesn't treat him like a walking ATM with toxic tendencies, and that man will move mountains. He will work until his hands bleed. He will fight wars nobody else wants to fight. He will invent, build, explore, and sacrifice without ever asking for a parade. That is what men have always done. That is what men were doing without complaint for centuries. But the deal changed. The mission was taken away and replaced with shame. The woman who respected him was replaced with one who was taught to see him as the enemy. The kids who looked up to him were taught in school that his very existence is harmful. And the society that once had his back now has a dagger ready the second he steps out of line. So he did the only rational thing left. He stopped moving mountains. He stopped bleeding. He stopped sacrificing. He went home, locked the door, and started living for himself for the first time in his life. And the craziest part is how happy he is now. You ever notice how many men in their 30s and 40s suddenly look 10 years younger than they did 5 years ago? It's not just the gym and the testosterone replacement, it's the absence of stress. No more coming home to arguments about money he earned being spent on things he never agreed to. No more dreading the next false accusation that could end his career. No more lying awake at night wondering if the woman next to him is secretly recording conversations for future leverage. No more watching everything he built get carved up in a court system that starts with the assumption he is the villain. Just peace. Sweet, glorious, underrated peace. Meanwhile, the women who demanded that independence are standing in the grocery store, staring at a $40 receipt for 10 items and wondering why life suddenly got so hard. They're on dating apps swiping left on 99.9% of men and then complaining there are no good men left. They're taking selfies in front of the future is female signs while the infrastructure their grandfathers built crumbles around them. And every single day, another one of them goes viral crying about how lonely she is, how expensive everything is, how she can't find a man who will commit, completely oblivious to the fact that the men she ignored at 25 are now 35, debt free, jacked, and living better on 40,000 a year than she is on 90 because they don't have $300 nail appointments and weekly therapy sessions to subsidize. That is not karma, that is physics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You cannot spend 50 years telling half the population they are unnecessary and then act confused when they take you at your word. Let me give you another example nobody talks about. Look at what happened to the teaching profession. In the 1970s, roughly 40% of teachers were men. Today, that number is under 20% and dropping every year. Why? Because the profession was deliberately feminized. Salaries were allowed to stagnate because everyone assumed a woman would do it for love while her husband paid the bills. Working conditions became hostile to male energy. Any man who showed the slightest bit of authority or discipline was labeled controlling or worse, so men left. And now schools are overwhelmed with behavioral problems nobody knows how to handle because the only people left who will take the job are the ones who cannot enforce boundaries. The kids suffer the most, especially the boys who are now drugged into compliance because the system has no idea what to do with male energy anymore. Same story in nursing and social work, in psychology, in every profession that was once balanced and is now 80 to 90% female. Men looked at the pay, the working conditions, the legal liability, the cultural contempt, and they walked. And every single time, the response from the women who took over is good riddance, followed 5 years later by why is everything falling apart? Because you removed the one ingredient that made the whole recipe work. Men who felt invested in the outcome. Men do not work for abstract ideals. We do not wired that way. We work for concrete stakes. My family, my legacy, my tribe, my woman, my children. Remove those stakes and you remove the rocket fuel. What's left is a man who will do the absolute minimum to keep himself alive and comfortable and nothing more. And that is exactly what we are seeing on a civilization wide scale. Look at Japan. They've been dealing with this for 30 years now. Herbivore men, they call them. Young men who have completely opted out of dating, marriage, and ambition. They work part time jobs, live in tiny apartments, play video games, and eat cup noodles. And they are some of the happiest demographics on the planet, according to their own surveys. The Japanese government has thrown billions at trying to fix the birth rate, and nothing works because the men are not angry, they're content. They looked at what was being offered marriage to women who expect them to work until they drop while treating them like disposable wallets, and they said, no, thank you. And now Japan is facing demographic collapse so severe that entire villages are being abandoned, and the government is literally paying people move there just to keep the lights on. We are next. We are already there. The only difference is America still has more land and more guns. So when the wheels come off, it's going to look a little different. But make no mistake, the same dynamic is playing out in every Western nation right now. Men are quietly, peacefully, and irreversibly withdrawing their energy from a system that hates them. And the people who broke the system are now demanding that men fix it anyway, because it's our duty. Duty to whom exactly? To the same institutions that spent decades telling us we are the problem, to the same women who said they would rather meet a bear in the woods, to the same government that prints money like it's going out of style while taxing us into oblivion, to the same culture that celebrates our erasure while depending on our production. Nah, we good. We will sit this one out. We will watch from the sidelines with popcorn. We will lift. We will stack. We will trade. We will travel. We will enjoy the peace we were never allowed to have when we were busy carrying everyone else. And when the final bill comes due, when the lights flicker and the grocery shelves are empty and the 401k statements look like horror movies, the only thing we will say is what we have been saying for years now. You were warned. You were warned every time a man said, this is unsustainable, and was called bitter. You were warned every time a man said, I'm out, and was called a loser. You were warned every time a man chose peace over chaos and was called immature. You were warned. And nobody listened. So now the most powerful force in human history, the focused energy of free men, has been redirected from building civilization to building personal peace. Good luck running the world without it. Let me take you back to 1965 for a minute, because this whole collapse didn't start with TikTok or OnlyFans or Andrew Tate. It started the day the culture decided that the average working man was no longer a hero, but a problem to be solved. In 1965, the Moynihan Report came out and warned everyone that breaking apart the black family through welfare policy would destroy generations of men and boys. Everyone called Moynihan a racist and ignored him. Fast forward 60 years, and the exact same pathology has spread to every demographic in the country. Single motherhood is now celebrated as bravery, while fatherhood is treated like an optional accessory you can return for store credit. And every single metric crime, dropout rates, drug overdoses, suicide, incarceration, all of it tracks perfectly with the absence of invested fathers. But nobody was allowed to say that out loud because feelings matter more than physics. So men watched their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, their best friends get financially annihilated in family court for the crime of wanting to see their own children. They watched child support orders that exceed the actual cost of raising a child while the mother posts vacation pictures from Dubai. They watched alimony awarded to women who make more money than the man because historical earning potential. They watched men lose their homes, their life savings, their dogs, their right to own firearms, their professional licenses, all because a woman woke up one day and decided she was bored. And after watching that horror movie play out on repeat for 2 generations, men did the only sane thing left. They stopped buying tickets to the theater. Marriage rates have collapsed faster than any time since the Black Death. In 1970, roughly 80% of men in their 30s were married. Today, that number is under 30% and still falling. The dating app companies are publicly panicking because men are deleting their profiles in droves. The phrase, it's just not worth it, has become the quiet mantra of an entire generation. And every time some talking head on television says, men need to man up and commit, 100,000 more men swipe the app closed forever. Because we finally did the math. The average wedding now costs $40,000 you will never get back. The average divorce costs the man between $1 and $3 million in lifetime wealth transfer when you factor in lost assets, child support, alimony, and destroyed earning potential from stress and depression. That's not hyperbole. Forensic accountants have run the numbers. Getting married today for the average man is the single worst financial decision he will ever make in his life. Worse than buying crypto at the absolute top in 2021, worse than gambling away your house in Vegas, worse than starting a restaurant in 2020. And the ROI? You get a 50% chance of, of being replaced by another man who didn't have to pay the entry fee, plus a 70 to 80% chance the kids you're paying for will be taught to resent you because you're the reason mommy had to work. Hard pass. So men stopped proposing, stopped dating with intent, stopped caring about height, money, status, all the things women said they wanted because the game was revealed to be rigged from the jump. And the moment men stopped caring, the entire power dynamic flipped overnight. Suddenly, women in their late 20s and early 30s are writing think pieces titled, Where Are All the Good Men Hiding? Suddenly, dating coaches are making millions teaching women how to be feminine again because being strong and independent didn't get the ring. Suddenly, every influencer who spent years saying, I don't need a man, is now posting thirst traps with captions like, waiting for my king to find me. And the men are just laughing because we remember. We remember when those same women were 22 and treating decent men like disposable entertainment. We remember the ghosting, the breadcrumbing, the you're great, but I'm focusing on my career right now. The endless validation chasing while giving nothing real in return. We remember watching our buddies get used for free dinners, free vacations, free emotional support, only to be discarded the moment a taller, richer, more exciting option slid into the DMs. We remember all of it. And now that the biological clock is ticking louder than the ego, now that rent is due and the government checks aren't stretching like they used to, now they want traditional men with traditional values and traditional provider instincts. Cool. Those men still exist. They're just not dating anymore. They're in the gym at 5 a.m. They're stacking crypto in cold storage. They're building businesses that run without them. They're fishing in Montana, surfing in Portugal, lifting in Thailand, hunting in Alaska, living lives so full and peaceful that the idea of adding chaos for the sake of love feels like volunteering to go back to prison. And the best part? They're not angry. That's what scares the system the most. They're not raging incels in their mom's basement. They're calm, centered, jacked, debt free, passport carrying, multiple income stream kings who wake up every day thanking God they dodged the bullet the previous generation took right between the eyes. That peace is the ultimate revenge. Not violence, not screaming, not protesting, just peace. The system cannot handle peaceful men. Angry men can be negotiated with, shamed, canceled, arrested, medicated. Hard times are here. Jobs are disappearing fast. And if you lose yours, you could be homeless in a few months or even a few weeks. But it doesn't have to be that way. Check out Angry's Creator Academy and learn how to build your own online business using YouTube to grow it. And get the free creator blueprint when you sign up. The link's in description below. Go check it out now. Peaceful men who have zero need for the system, those men are unstoppable. That is why the media is in 2025 is in full panic mode. Every week there's a new article about the crisis of masculinity or the loneliness epidemic among men or how men are falling behind and we need to help them. All of it is framed like men are helpless victims who need to be saved from themselves. But the truth is the opposite. Men are not falling behind. Men are walking away on purpose. Men are not lonely. Men are solitary by choice and loving it. Men are not in crisis. Men are in the best shape of their lives, financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, because for the first time in history, the average man has permission to put himself first. And that terrifies everyone who spent decades profiting off his self sacrifice. Look at the birth rate. Every developed country is now below replacement level, and the ones celebrating independence the loudest are falling the fastest. Cities like Seattle, San Francisco, New York, London, Toronto, Sydney, entire metropolitan areas full of highly educated, high earning women in their 30s and 40s suddenly realizing the stork doesn't take Venmo. Fertility clinics are exploding with business from women who spent their prime years climbing corporate ladders only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. And the men those women ignored, those men are in Medellin dating 25-year-olds who cook, clean, and look at them like they hung the moon. Or they're child free by choice, stacking generational wealth they will leave to their nephews or their favorite charity or their dog. Because why not? They have zero incentive to do anything else. The social contract is not broken. It was canceled by one side, and the other side accepted the cancellation. There is no going back to 1955. There is no resetting the game. The genie is out of the bottle, and he is shredded, debt free, and sleeping 9 hours a night. And the most delicious irony of all, the same system that told men they were toxic for wanting traditional roles now needs traditional men more than ever to keep the lights on. And those men are nowhere to be found when it's time to pay the bill. Fire departments closing stations because no volunteers. Power grids failing because no new linemen. Construction projects delayed years because no young guys want to swing hammers in the rain for wages that haven't moved since 1995. Military recruitment at historic lows while China builds hypersonic missiles every week. Police departments so understaffed, they don't even respond to property crime anymore. And every single one of those jobs used to be filled by men who thought they were protecting their families and their communities. Remove the family, remove the community respect, and you remove the man. It really is that simple. And so when Oprah sits there with tears in her eyes talking about how we need men to come back, what she's really saying is we need men to come back to being disposable utilities who pay for everything while we continue to insult them. And the answer from 50 million men is a calm, unified, unbothered no. Not out of spite, out of mathematics, out of self respect, out of inner peace. We are good. We are better than we have ever been. And we are not coming back. We are building something new, something parallel, something that doesn't need your approval, your validation, your taxes, or your permission. And when your world finally finishes collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions, we will still be here, lifting and stacking and traveling and laughing and living up because all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. Every week, another married guy watches one of these stories looks at his own life, looks at the ring on his finger that feels more like a handcuff every day, looks at the woman next to him who hasn't said a kind word in months, but somehow still expects a $300 date night every weekend, looks at the kids who roll their eyes when he walks in the room because school taught them dad is the oppressor, looks at the bank account that never grows because every spare dollar goes to braces and dance classes and college funds, he will still be paying when he's 70. And he feels something snap, not in anger, but in clarity. He feels the exact same click Mike felt in that courthouse parking lot. And within 6 months, he's gone. Quietly, legally, surgically, he keeps the retirement accounts intact, keeps his tools, keeps his dignity, keeps his peace, and he leaves the rest on the table because he finally understands that peace is worth more than any asset she can take. And the divorce industrial complex calls him selfish. I call him free. That click is spreading like wildfire in slow motion. You cannot unsee it once you see it. Once a man realizes the game was not designed for him to win, only to lose slowly while smiling, the only rational move is to stop playing and build a new game with better rules. And that is exactly what millions of us are doing right now. We are forming tribes again, real tribes, not the fake corporate ones, not the hashtag ones, but tribes of men who live together, eat together, shoot together, travel together, hold each other accountable, and most importantly, protect each other's peace like it's sacred, because it is. We trade knowledge instead of validation. We share land opportunities instead of trauma dumps. We celebrate each other's wins instead of competing for female attention. We are rebuilding brotherhood from the ground up, and it is the healthiest, happiest, most dangerous thing the system has seen in 100 years. Dangerous because a man with brothers and peace cannot be controlled. He cannot be shamed. He cannot be taxed into submission. He cannot be guilted into giving away his life for people who hate him. He has zero incentive to return to the plantation, and the plantation owners are panicking. That's why every legacy media outlet is suddenly running the same three stories on repeat. Men are lonely, men are lost, men need help. All of it written by people who spent 20 years telling men their natural instincts were toxic. And now they're shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that men stopped offering those instincts to a society that criminalized them. You can't spend decades telling a lion he's a monster for having teeth and then act surprised when he stops hunting for the village. The lion didn't die, he just went hunting for himself. And he's eating better than ever. Look at what's happening in the financial markets right now. Young men are the primary demographic buying Bitcoin, buying gold, buying silver, land, anything that cannot be inflated or confiscated. They're moving assets offshore, learning about privacy coins, setting up trusts, getting second passports, building parallel economies that run underneath the one that's collapsing. They're not waiting for permission. They're not asking for a seat at the table. They're building their own table in another country if necessary. And they're doing it so quietly that the IRS only finds out when the exit tax gets paid on the way out. Look at the explosion of men's only spaces online and offline. Private discords with tens of thousands of members where no blue check feminist can wander in and demand emotional labor. Gyms that ban phones and play whatever music they want. Barber shops that feel like church for men again. Hunting lodges, fight clubs, jujitsu academies, gun ranges, all of them packed with men who realize the only approval they need is from the guy spotting them on bench press. Look at the passport bros phenomenon. Not the caricatures the media shows you, not the sex tourists they want you to imagine, but regular guys, mechanics, nurses, software devs, teachers, guys making 60 to 90,000 a year who realized they are treated like kings in half the world for the same money that gets them ignored and insulted back home. They're not running from responsibility. They're running toward respect. And they're finding it by the boatload. Every single trend, every data point, every quiet conversation in every garage and gun club and gym locker room is pointing to the same conclusion. Men have reached escape velocity. We are not asking for the old deal back. We are not negotiating. We are not coming back to save you. We are building something new, something better, something that runs on brotherhood, competence, strength, and peace. And the most beautiful part, women are starting to notice, not all of them, but enough. The smart ones, the quiet ones, the ones who watched their mothers destroy their fathers and decided they wanted a different story. They're learning how to cook again. They're closing their legs until respect is earned. They're deleting the dating apps and showing up at church, at the gun range, at the gym, at the barbecue, places where men actually congregate with potato salad and a smile and zero attitude. They're reading the writing on the wall and adapting faster than the culture can shame them for it. And the men, we welcome them, but not out of desperation, out of abundance, because a good woman who brings peace is still the ultimate luxury item. But she has to bring peace. She has to earn her place the same way we earned ours. No more one-sided contracts. No more pretending. No more subsidies for contempt. Just peace, respect, loyalty, and mutual building. And that's the new contract. Take it or leave it. Most will leave it because ego is expensive. The few who take it will live like queens. The rest will keep swiping and wondering why the apps feel so empty. And life will go on. The lights may flicker, the shelves may thin out, the government may default. But millions of men will still wake up every morning in paid for homes with full bellies, strong bodies, clear minds, fat wallets, and brothers on speed dial, smiling at the sunrise, grateful beyond words that we dodged the bullet our fathers and grandfathers weren't fast enough to see coming. And that is the revolution they never saw coming, not with guns and not with votes, not with violence, but with silence, with peace, with walking away. And it is the most powerful force on earth right now. So, to every man watching this who's still grinding in quiet frustration, still wondering if it's worth it, still thinking maybe he's the problem, you're not the problem. You're the prize. And the game is over. You already won. You just have to stop playing their version and start living yours. To every woman watching this who's tired of the loneliness, tired of the struggle, tired of pretending strength feels good when it actually feels empty, the door is still open. But the price of admission is respect. Bring peace or bring nothing. We're good either way. Let me tell you what the next 5 years actually look like, because nobody on my legacy television or in the halls of government is willing to say it out loud. And by the time they do, it will be too late for most people. The men have already done the math. The men have already moved the money. The men have already bought the land, the tools, the generators, the ammunition, the seeds, the skills, the second passports, the offshore accounts, the cold storage wallets. The men are not waiting for a collapse. They are living after it. And the gap between the men who saw this coming and the rest of society is about to become a canyon so wide you will be able to see it from space. Picture this. It's 2029. The dollar has lost another 60% of its purchasing power since 2025. A loaf of bread is 18 bucks. Gasoline is rationed in half the states. The power grid browns out every summer because there aren't enough linemen to fix the lines after storms, and the ones still working refuse overtime because they're paid in funny money. Credit card debt defaults are running at Great Depression levels. Every major pension fund in the country is quietly insolvent, and the politicians are arguing about which generation gets thrown under the bus first. The cities that spent the last 20 years defunding everything that keeps civilization running are now ghost towns after dark. The suburbs are turning into food deserts because the trucking companies can't hire drivers who will risk the routes anymore. And in the middle of all that chaos, there are pockets of absolute calm. Small towns nobody ever heard of. Counties with more deer than people. Private land behind locked gates where the lights never go out, the wells never run dry, the freezers are always full. And the men who live there sleep like babies because they saw the writing on the wall a decade earlier and spent that decade preparing instead of arguing on Twitter. Those men are not survivalists with bunkers full of canned beans and paranoia. They're just regular dudes who read history, understood incentives, and decided they weren't going to be the last generation of suckers holding the bag. They're the electrician who moved to Idaho and now barters his skills for beef. The software engineer who cashed out at the 2021 top, bought 200 acres in Tennessee, and hasn't paid an electric bill since 2023. The former cop who took his pension lump sum, moved to Paraguay, and now runs a cattle operation with his brothers, while his ex wife back in Jersey wonders why her alimony check bounced. The diesel mechanic who turned his garage into a cash only fortress and hasn't filed taxes in 4 years because everything he touches is paid for in silver or barter. These men are everywhere now, and they're multiplying exponentially because every month another 1,000 guys wake up, look at the news, look at their 401k that lost 40% in real purchasing power, look at their wife's credit card statement, look at the crime map of their neighborhood, and say the same 4 words Mike said in that courthouse parking lot: I'm done. And when they say it, they mean it. They sell the overpriced house at the absolute peak, take the cash, disappear to a red county or a red country, and go completely off grid in every way that matters. They keep their heads down, they're powder dry, they're circle tight, and their women, if they choose to have one, vetted like a CIA background check. Because the last thing any of them will ever do again is rebuild a life that can be taken away by a signature on a court document. That is the future that is already here for the men who listen. For everyone else, the next 5 years are going to feel like the longest, slowest car crash in human history. The women who spent the 2000s, 10s, and early 2000s, 20s telling men to do better while treating decent men like garbage are about to learn what do better actually costs when there's no safety net left. The corporate climbers who thought the girl boss era would last forever are about to find out what happens when the layoffs start, and the only people left who can fix the machines are the men they spent years calling toxic. The politicians who thought they could keep printing money and importing votes forever are about to discover what happens when the men who actually generate the surplus stop showing up to work. And the best part, the men who walked away aren't going to lift a finger to stop any of it. Not because we hate women, not because we hate society, but because we finally love ourselves more. We finally understand that our energy is finite, our time is priceless, and our peace is non negotiable. We are not going to war to protect a culture that teaches little boys they are defective from age 5. We are not going into debt to subsidize lifestyles that despise us. We are not risking our freedom, our health, or our future for people who spent decades proving they would throw us under the bus the second it was convenient. We are simply done. And that done is the most powerful word in the English language right now, because when enough men become done, civilization as we knew it ends, not with a bang, not with tanks in the streets, but with a quiet click of a deadbolt on a cabin door somewhere in the mountains while the owner pours himself a drink and watches the sunset he paid for with cash he earned on his own terms. That is the sound of the future. Click, pour, smile, repeat. And while the cities burn through the last of the surplus our fathers and grandfathers built, the men who walked away will be raising cattle, raising gardens, raising iron, raising brothers, and raising glasses to the fact that we finally put ourselves first. Some people will call it selfish, we call it survival. Some people will call it the end of the world, we call it the beginning of ours. And the beauty of it is, we don't need permission, we don't need approval. We don't need a majority. We don't even need most men. We only need the 5 to 10% who get it, the ones who are already living it, the ones who are quietly recruiting their brothers, one barbecue, one hunting trip, one gym session, one crypto trade at a time. That 5 to 10% is enough to build the next civilization from the ashes of this one. Because all great resets start with a remnant who refuse to go down with the ship. Noah didn't need the whole village on the ark. He just needed the few who listened when the rain started. We are that remnant. We are the ark builders. We are the ones who looked at the storm coming, and instead of arguing about whether it was real, we started cutting timber. And when the water finally rises high enough that even the last deniers are pounding on the hull, begging to be let in, we will look out the window, raise our glass one more time, and say the same thing we've been saying since 2015. You had your chance. Then we'll close the hatch, fire up the generator, grill the steaks, and keep building the world we actually want to live in. A world where men are respected again. A world where peace is the default setting, a world where brotherhood is currency and loyalty is law, a world where no man ever has to choose between his dignity and his duty again. That world is not coming someday, it's already here. You're just not allowed to see it yet because you're still staring at the old one collapsing. But step away from the screen, drive 2 hours in any direction away from a major city, find the first dirt road that doesn't show up on Google Maps, follow it until you see a gate with no trespassing signs and a bunch of trucks parked behind it, knock once, and if the guy who answers the door likes your vibe, he'll hand you a beer and you'll spend the next 6 hours hearing stories that will make you realize everything I just said is already real. Real land, real food, real money, real peace, real brothers. And zero need for the collapsing system that's still trying to shame you into saving it. That's the secret they don't want you to know. The life you were told doesn't exist anymore is alive and well and growing every single day. You just have to be willing to walk away from the lie to find it. So if you're still watching this and something in your chest is screaming, he's right, then stop waiting. Stop arguing and stop coping. Stop hoping the politicians or the influencers or the next election or the next bull market is going to fix this. It's not. The fix is you. The fix is walking away today. The fix is choosing peace over chaos, brotherhood over begging, competence over complaining, and freedom over the illusion of security. The fix is understanding that the strongest thing a man can do in 2025 and beyond is say no and mean it. No to the marriage trap and no to the 9 to 5 plantation. No to the taxes that fund your own destruction. No to the culture that hates you. No to the women who offer nothing but demands. No to everything that does not serve your peace, your purpose, your prosperity. Say no and then go build yes on your own terms. Because the men who do that today will be the founding fathers of whatever comes next. And the men who don't will be the cautionary tales our sons tell around the fire in 20 years. The choice is yours, but the clock is ticking, the water is rising, and the ark is almost finished. And the guest list is very, very exclusive. So I'll leave you with this. If you're a man and you're tired, you're not broken, you're awake. If you're a man and you're angry, you're not toxic, you're aware. If you're a man and you're walking away, you're not quitting, you're winning. And if you're a man and you've already found your peace, then raise your glass right now, brother, because you're living the dream they said was impossible. You're living proof that all roads still lead to one destination. MWA, men walking away. And now go live it. What did you think about all this? Did it hit you in the chest like it was supposed to? Are you already on the road, or are you still standing in the burning house wondering why it's getting hot? Drop your story in the comments. No filter. Let the brothers know they're not alone. Like the video if it lit a fire under you. Subscribe if you're ready for more truth bombs that the algorithm tries to bury. Share this with every man who still thinks he has to take the punch instead of throwing the fight. And if you want to make sure you're financially bulletproof when the final shoe drops, click that link in the description and get inside Angry's Crypto Academy before the next wave of brothers shows up and we have to close the doors again. If one Red Bull today keeps this channel alive tomorrow, you know what to do. All roads lead to MWA. Men walking away. Cheers, kings. Now go build your empire.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh crypto.